What's going on, Kings? It's Keefe. In this video, we are going over what to do when you relapse. This is an inevitable part of anything you're going to do. We're talking about NoFap in particular in this video, but anything that you are trying to make a change on and improve yourself, you are going to have those moments when you relapse. And these are usually the moments that break most people. And this is why they don't get the change in their life and they don't experience the positive benefits of any practice that they choose to get on. So we want to make sure that you know exactly how to handle these situations so that rather than crashing and burning, you just get back on the saddle and you keep going. Now, before we get into that though, hit the subscribe button and bell icon. This channel is all about helping men level up and become those high value winners they were born to be. And if that resonates with you, you will definitely love the content on this channel. Now, let's get started. What I'm gonna do in this video, guys, is I'm gonna cover a couple pointers and then I'm actually gonna jump over to the board and we're gonna work through exactly how to handle these relapse situations. Now, the first thing I wanna cover though is expectations. Expectations are the biggest killers for most people in achieving any goal they have for themselves. And in particular, when it comes to NoFap, the expectation of perfection ends up causing most people to fail at this practice. You should not expect to never relapse again. I have literally met nobody, including myself, who has never relapsed on this practice. And the reason it's important to not be focused on perfection and telling yourself, this is it, I am staying on this practice forever, I am never relapsing, is because it's not going to happen. You're probably going to relapse, especially when you start something brand new. It is very hard to just radically change your behavior. And so if you're telling yourself this, the moment you break that code, you break that rule for yourself and you relapse, you start giving up on everything rather than seeing it as an opportunity to grow and improve. You see it as a reason why it's not going to work out for you. It's impossible. You failed. And so you just fall back into those old habits. So instead of thinking perfection, think of improvement. A great example of this is a friend of mine. I told him about NoFap like a year ago. I put him onto it and he was like, all right, I'm gonna give it a shot. We're gonna see what happens here. And I remember him texting me like a day or two into it and he was already like miserable. He was like, there's no way I can do this. And I was trying to motivate him, keep him going, all this stuff. And I'm pretty sure he relapsed pretty quickly. I don't really talk about this topic that much with my friends, but when it came up, I do remember him like, yeah, I relapsed. But he still does the practice, because last time I talked to him about it, he's like, yeah, I kind of got this part of my life under control now, and it's a lot easier than it used to be. And as a result, I have all this more time. I'm not doing these bad behaviors. I can focus. I'm a lot more confident and grounded in my manhood. So what happened was he started off on this practice. He was really no good at it. It was a complete change from who he'd been. Like most guys, he was compulsively watching pornography all the time, and now he wasn't doing that anymore. And it was really weird, and it didn't last very long. But now that he's been doing it for a while, and rather than focusing on perfection, he just focused on improvement, and he didn't tell himself he was never going to relapse. He was just like, all right, I'm going to give this a shot. Now he has it, and it's pretty easy for him, and he doesn't feel bad about himself if he relapses. He's like, it is what it is. Like, I'm just going to make this practice work for myself, but I'm not guaranteeing perfection. So by focusing on improving yourself rather than being perfect, you make it so that when bad things happen, you look at them as opportunities to improve rather than proof that you can't do it. Stoic philosophers had this thing where they talked about visualizing the worst case scenario, and I think it really applies to situations like this. We tend to, in any aspect of our life where we want a goal to happen, we tend to focus only on the best case scenario and everything's going to be perfect. And then what happens is reality hits us. It's not perfect. And so because it didn't happen exactly how we visualized, it wasn't perfect, we start losing hope. We give up. But if you focus on the negative situation that can occur, and I'm not saying get really wound up in it and get all up in your head and worried and stuff, but if you just acknowledge like what might go wrong, it puts you in this position where you're more mentally prepared for it. And when it happens, it doesn't shock you and change your entire life. So you could mentally prepare and say, you know what, I probably am going to find myself in situations where I'm going to relapse, and here's how I'm going to handle those situations, rather than trying to act like that's never going to happen. All right, guys, I'm about to break down exactly how these relapse situations occur and what to do when they actually happen, because it is so important to accept that they will happen and then know what to do when they happen. So to start off, you're usually going to find yourself, when you do any new practice at all, you're going to find yourself up here, okay? This is when you very first start something. This could be literally like we're talking about. This could be NoFap. It could be your fitness journey. If you go to the gym on New Year's Day, this is you, right? And what happens up here is you've got all this motivation. You found out all these reasons why you need to do this thing. So if it's NoFap, it's like, you know, this is going to cure my social anxiety. It's going to make me better with girls. It's going to make me more confident. It's going to help me get my life together. Whatever it is, you have all these motivating reasons why you think this practice is going to change your life. And so you decide you're going to start on it, and you're up here. And then what quickly happens is that motivation dies. and you wind up down here at the bottom. And then when you get to the bottom, this is basically when all that amped up energy is gone, right? If you're relying on motivation, that's entry level to begin with. You're not going to succeed if you're relying on motivation to do anything. But most of the time, that's how you're going to start any practice, is you're going to be motivated. You're going to lack the discipline because you haven't made this a habit yet. So this process right here, it could take a day, it could take a week, it could take a month, hell, it could take an hour, depending on how compulsive you are about this behavior. But at some point, you're going to find yourself down here at the bottom. And then at the bottom, one of two things is going to happen. You're either going to use the bottom as an excuse and you're just going to stay like that for the rest of eternity. Maybe you try again over here, you spike back up, and then you go right back down. But you're basically not handling the situation right. A situation two is because you weren't expecting perfection and you weren't feeling bad about yourself for doing it. You get back on the saddle. So you go basically straight back up to the top here and you keep going. And maybe you dip, but it takes longer. You'll see it's going to take longer. And maybe you correct yourself quicker. And so basically this is the process, and this is how you can handle a relapse. You can handle it in one of two ways. You can, number one, right here, you have something, you relapse on the practice, and you use the fact that you relapse as an excuse to keep relapsing. This is like people who they violate their diet once, and because they broke their diet one time, they use that as an excuse to break it again and again and again, and they just start going back down this unconscious compulsive habit pattern pretty much. So this is like you're going right back to who you used to be. And now this second line right up here is basically you caught yourself and you became conscious. You recognize that you've had this situation, you've relapsed, and you go right back up to where you were. You go back up to the very top because you acknowledged it. Rather than letting it be an excuse because you failed once to just keep failing and to go back into being who you were, you caught it. You said, okay, this isn't who I want to be. And you reaffirmed yourself who I am. No, I'm on this practice. And so you shoot right back up to the top, and oftentimes you'll get your motivation back. And over time, like I mentioned, when the ruts come, they come lower and lower until eventually you're kind of like this. Now, at some point, you need to be realistic and understand that you're always going to have ruts. There's days when you're just going to lapse on discipline. I've been working out for a long time, and there are still days where my workouts are just absolute shit. That's just how it is in life. But if you can catch yourself in those moments, if I can catch myself when I'm at the gym and I'm like, all right, that was a bad workout, I need to lock back in, rather than just having one bad workout after the next bad workout and the next bad workout and the next bad workout because I'm just not feeling it. If I catch that feeling, I'm like, you know what, fuck this, like this is not acceptable, and I raise the standard back up, then I can get back on track, and then over time discipline kicks in, and you can do this for longer and longer and longer periods of time. And now what I want to go over with you guys is exactly what to do when this happens so that you can be line number two and you can shoot right back up to being motivated rather than just feeling sorry for yourself, staying in that victim mode and going back into old habits. So the first thing you want to do is you do want to be mad at yourself. Get mad at yourself for a second. And the reason I say that is because you need to kind of like put that pain point back on yourself. There was a reason you started doing this practice in the first place. And if you don't reaffirm that reason to yourself and why what you did was unacceptable, then you'll keep doing it. So you do want to get mad at yourself, but you also want to do it for a brief second. So for me, if in any area of my life, this looks like basically I look at it and say, okay, why is this unacceptable? And then I start laying out all the reasons. Okay, well, like, let's say I'm not having a bad week on my diet. I'm like, okay, well, this is unacceptable. Look, I didn't put in all this work in the gym and all this work on my diet just to get lazy now. And honestly, how am I going to look on the beach? I talk all this stuff. I take pride in having a really nice body, and now I'm going to be fat on the beach or something like that. And I just start playing these things in my head. I'm like, this is unacceptable. Like, you have an expectation for yourself to have a great looking body. You better hold up to that. And I start telling myself all these things. I'm like, this is unacceptable. Get your crap together. Now, once I've done that, once I've gotten mad at myself for a second, I've gotten on all the reasons why this is unacceptable, I've kind of fired myself up, I don't keep kicking myself and I don't keep feeling bad for myself and loathing myself, which is why I say be mad for a second. So get it clear in your head, okay, this is unacceptable. Reaffirm why it's unacceptable. That'll motivate you. And then you want to accept the fact that you've made this mistake. Accept the fact that you've relapsed. And then when you accept it, you can do better. Okay, I've messed up. Now it's time to get back on the saddle. It's time to get better at doing this. And then finally, ask yourself what triggered the relapsing situation. There are going to be trigger moments for you in any area of your life that are going to be the thing that caused you to relapse. And once you start to identify that, you can start to avoid that situation and put yourself in better spots. So if you're somebody who's struggling with your diet and you get put in a situation where there's a bunch of sweet food around and you have a really big sweet tooth, maybe that's a trigger situation for you. You want to avoid those specific situations. If for you, maybe it's Instagram and you're trying to be on NoFap, well, maybe you should delete Instagram for a while until you get this under control. Start identifying what triggered you to relapse, and then you can stop doing those behaviors. And over time, you're going to go longer and longer and longer without relapsing, and discipline is going to start to kick in rather than just relying on motivation, which again, motivation isn't going to get you where you want to go because it just doesn't last. You have to rely on discipline. But in order to get discipline, you have to build it up over time. So guys, if you got something out of this video, give me a like, hit the subscribe button and bell icon. I hope this video was really helpful for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.